The lottery ticket was worth $48 million, but at 5:14 on Monday morning, Dakota Reed was still scraping dried chewing gum from beneath a cafeteria table. He worked with one knee against the cold tile, his gray custodian shirt sticking to his back, while an industrial floor buffer growled somewhere down the hall. Outside, Albuquerque was still dark. The Sandia Mountains were only a black shape beyond the windows, and Central Avenue glowed with motel signs that had been promising vacancies since the old Route 66 days. Dakota pushed the scraper under the gum and muttered, "Come on, don't make me fight you. You're arguing with furniture again." He looked over his shoulder. Savannah Price stood in the cafeteria doorway holding 2 paper cups of coffee. She taught 5th grade reading at Mesa Vista Elementary, though she arrived earlier than most of the custodial crew and stayed later than half the administrators. Her dark blonde hair was twisted into a loose knot, and a stack of ungraded book reports sat beneath one arm. Dakota stood and wiped his scraper on a rag. "Table started it." "Sure it did." She offered him a cup. He hesitated before taking it. Savannah had started bringing an extra coffee 3 weeks ago. She always claimed the gas station cashier had made 2 by mistake. Dakota knew better, but pretending protected them both from embarrassment. "Thanks," he said. "You sleep at all?" "Plenty." "That means no." "It means I'm standing." Savannah studied his face. Dakota turned away before she could notice the red mark along his cheek where the seat belt buckle had pressed against him during the night. He and Cynthia had been sleeping in his old Ford Explorer for 26 days. They parked behind a 24-hour laundromat near San Mateo Boulevard, where the security lights were bright enough to feel safe, and the dryers kept the back wall warm until midnight. Dakota folded the rear seats flat and built a narrow bed from moving blankets. Cynthia slept in the back beneath her purple winter coat. Dakota stayed upright in the driver's seat, waking whenever a truck passed or someone crossed the parking lot. At 7 years old, Cynthia believed they were car camping. Dakota planned to keep it that way. He had lost their apartment after the transmission shop cut his hours, then closed without paying its workers for their final 2 weeks. The school district custodial job came next, but deposits, application fees, and old medical debt had kept a new apartment out of reach. Every dollar had a destination before it reached his hand. Breakfast, gas, Cynthia's inhaler, a storage unit holding everything they still owned. Savannah set her book reports on a cafeteria table. "Cynthia's coming in with you again? Just till the before-school program opens. You know she can sit in my classroom." "I know. She doesn't bother me. She's my responsibility." Savannah's expression tightened. Letting someone help doesn't change that. Dakota took a slow drink of coffee. "You rehearsed that line?" "All weekend. Needs work." A small voice came from the hallway. "I liked it." Cynthia shuffled into the cafeteria wearing a red backpack over her pajamas. Her hair was tucked beneath a knitted cap, and she carried a grocery bag containing her school clothes. Dakota immediately checked the clock. "You were supposed to stay in the staff room. The couch smells like feet." Savannah covered a smile with her coffee cup. "That couch is older than the building," Dakota said. "Then it's had a long time to collect feet." Cynthia climbed onto a bench and placed the grocery bag beside her. Dakota crouched in front of her. "You cold?" "No." It was the same kind of lie he told Savannah. He pulled off his custodian jacket and wrapped it around Cynthia's shoulders. She disappeared inside it, only her face showing above the collar. Savannah watched them quietly. She knew something was wrong. Dakota could feel it every time her eyes lingered on Cynthia's backpack, always packed too heavily, or on Dakota's uniform, which he wore even on mornings he wasn't scheduled until later. But Savannah never asked the question directly. "Where are you living?" Maybe she understood that some questions were too expensive to answer. Cynthia reached inside her backpack. "Dad, I found your ticket." Dakota frowned. "What ticket?" "The yellow one." She handed him a folded lottery slip. He remembered buying it Friday night at a gas station after Cynthia found $1 beside the air pump. She had insisted it was lucky money. Dakota added another $1 and let her choose the numbers using birthdays and the number of letters in her favorite cereal. He had forgotten about it. Savannah glanced at the slip. "Powerball. Financial planning," Dakota said. "Very responsible." Cynthia tapped the paper. "Can we check it?" The drawing already happened. Saturday. Dakota unlocked his phone. The battery was at 9%. He searched the winning numbers while Cynthia leaned against his shoulder. Savannah began sorting her papers, pretending not to watch. Dakota read the first number. It matched. Then the second. He smiled faintly. 2 numbers. We might have won $4. Cynthia bounced once on the bench. The third number matched. Dakota stopped smiling. He checked the date printed on the ticket. Then the numbers again. 4th. 5th. His thumb hovered over the red Powerball number. Savannah noticed the change in his breathing. Dakota? He didn't answer. The final number was 11. Dakota looked down at the ticket. 11. The cafeteria seemed to lose all sound. Even the floor buffer in the hallway went silent, though Dakota could still see its electrical cord trembling against the tile. Cynthia tugged his sleeve. Did we win? Dakota refreshed the page. The jackpot amount appeared beneath the numbers. $48 million. His knees weakened, and he sat hard on the bench beside his daughter. Savannah walked closer. What is it? Dakota handed her the phone without speaking. She compared the screen to the ticket, moving her lips as she read each number. Her face drained of color. Oh my God. Cynthia looked from Savannah to her father. Is that good? Dakota stared at the ticket between his rough, chemical-stained fingers. 20 minutes earlier, he had been calculating whether he could afford gas and Cynthia's school lunch in the same day. Now his daughter was technically a millionaire. He folded the ticket once, then again, and slid it into the inside pocket of his uniform. Savannah lowered her voice. You need to leave. Right now? Put that somewhere safe and call an attorney. Dakota looked toward the cafeteria floor. Hundreds of black shoe marks curved across the wax tile. Students would arrive in less than 2 hours. My shift ends at 1:30. She stared at him. You just won $48 million. Maybe. There's no maybe. Dakota picked up the gum scraper. Cynthia blinked at him. Dad. He kissed the top of her knitted cap. Go get dressed, Peanut. Savannah stepped in front of him. What are you doing? Dakota looked down the long cafeteria, at the trash cans waiting to be emptied and the tables waiting to be cleaned. Then he pulled on a pair of rubber gloves. My job. By 9:15, 3 people had asked Dakota why Savannah kept staring at him. He pretended not to notice. Mesa Vista Elementary had filled with its usual Monday noise. Sneakers squeaked against waxed floors. Teachers called after children carrying breakfast trays. A 4th grader cried because someone had stepped on his science project. The front office printer jammed twice before the first bell. Dakota moved through it all with a ring of keys against his hip and $48 million folded inside a plastic sandwich bag beneath his undershirt. Savannah had insisted on the bag. Sweat can ruin paper, she'd whispered while Cynthia changed clothes in her classroom. You carry sandwich bags in your desk? I teach 10-year-olds. She had also made him photograph the ticket, write his name across the back, and lock the original inside the small metal cash box where she kept field trip money. Dakota hated leaving it anywhere outside his own reach, but he hated the idea of carrying it into restrooms and boiler closets even more. Savannah kept the key in the front pocket of her cardigan. That detail had already begun to bother him. Not because he didn't trust her, because trusting anyone that much felt dangerous. At lunch, Dakota was replacing a broken paper towel dispenser when Assistant Principal Mercer found him in the second-floor boys' restroom. Mercer stood in the doorway with his tie loosened and his phone pressed against his chest. You disappear this morning. No, Savannah said you had a family issue. Dakota tightened the final screw. Handled it. Mercer frowned. You know we're short 2 custodians. I'm here. That's not what I asked. Dakota climbed down from the step stool. Mercer was younger than him by at least 5 years, but he spoke to staff with the weary authority of a man who believed stress gave him rank. I didn't disappear, Dakota said. Mercer looked at the dispenser, then at Dakota. Well, Savannah looked pretty worked up. She worries. About you. Dakota picked up his toolbox. About everybody. Mercer gave him a thin smile. Must be nice. The words followed Dakota into the hallway. He found Savannah waiting outside her classroom while her students were at recess. She had crossed both arms over her chest. You told Mercer I had a family issue? You needed time to breathe. I didn't ask you to cover for me. You were sitting in my supply closet staring at a mop bucket. I was thinking. For 23 minutes. Dakota looked through the classroom window. Cynthia sat alone at a reading table, drawing on the back of an old worksheet. She should be outside, he said. She said her chest felt tight. His anger disappeared. Where's her inhaler? She used it. She's okay. Dakota entered the classroom and crouched beside his daughter. How bad? Cynthia kept drawing. Not bad. That's not a number. 3 out of 10. She nodded. Dakota checked the color in her face and listened to her breathing. It sounded clear now. What happened? Cynthia's crayon stopped. Savannah remained near the doorway. Some kids asked why I changed clothes at school, Cynthia said. Dakota's stomach tightened. What did you tell them? That our pipes broke. He glanced at Savannah. She looked away first. Cynthia drew harder, pressing the purple crayon until the paper began to tear. Mia said people with broken pipes stay at hotels. Dakota rested one hand on the table. Kids say things. She asked where our hotel was. What did you say? I said I forgot. Her voice cracked on the final word. Dakota reached for her, but Cynthia slid out of the chair and moved to the other side of the table. You said it was only for a little while. It is. You said that before Halloween. Savannah's eyes closed briefly. Dakota stood. Cynthia, we won now, right? He looked toward the hallway. Keep your voice down. Why? Because this isn't something we talk about at school. But we don't have to sleep in the car tonight. The room seemed to shrink around them. Savannah shut the classroom door. Cynthia stared at her father. We don't, right? Dakota rubbed both hands over his face. He had spent the morning thinking about lawyers, taxes, trusts, and whether someone could steal a winning ticket after it had been signed. He had not allowed himself to think about the back seat of the Explorer. We can't touch the money yet, he said. But we won it. We have to claim it first. So claim it. It's not that simple. Cynthia's chin trembled. You always say that. Dakota flinched. Savannah walked toward her. Your dad's trying to protect you. Cynthia turned sharply. You're not my mom. The words landed harder than a shout. Savannah stopped. Dakota's voice dropped. Apologize. Cynthia stared at the floor. Now. I'm sorry. Savannah nodded once. It's okay. It wasn't. Dakota could see that in the way she began collecting pencils that didn't need collecting. He took Cynthia into the hallway and walked her toward the nurse's office. She stayed 2 steps ahead of him, dragging one hand along the cinder block wall. You don't talk to her like that, he said. She acts like she lives with us. She's helping. She knows we live in the car. Dakota stopped walking. Cynthia turned around. She saw us, she said. When? Saturday morning. At the laundromat. His face went hot. Savannah had known. She had known before the ticket, before the coffee, before telling him he could trust her classroom. And she had said nothing. He left Cynthia with the nurse, then returned to Savannah's room as the recess bell rang. Children streamed past him, laughing and shoving, but Savannah remained alone inside. You saw us Saturday. Her shoulders stiffened. Dakota closed the door. Why didn't you say anything? Because you would have run. You don't know me. I know you turn every offer into an insult. You watch my kid sleep in a parking lot. I saw you making breakfast on the hood of your car. I saw Cynthia brushing her teeth with bottled water. And then what? You drove home and felt sorry for us. Savannah's expression sharpened. I called 3 shelters. His jaw tightened. They were full, she continued. I checked Motel Mercer's eyes stayed on the envelope. Dakota slid it into his shirt pocket. Savannah left me a phone number. For what? None of your business. Mercer's smile disappeared. Careful. Dakota shut his locker. My shift's over. He walked past him, expecting another question, but Mercer only watched. Outside, the afternoon sun had turned the school parking lot white with heat. Cynthia sat beneath a cottonwood tree beside Savannah, her red backpack between her shoes. Savannah stood when Dakota approached. I called the attorney, he said. Her expression softened, but only slightly. Good. He can meet us in an hour. Us. Dakota glanced at Cynthia. I need someone there who won't let me make a stupid decision. Savannah looked at him for a long moment. That sounds dangerously close to asking for help. Don't get used to it. Cynthia rose from the curb. Does that mean we're getting a house? Dakota crouched in front of her. It means we're taking the next step. Her face fell. He touched the strap of her backpack. And tonight, we're getting a motel room. A real one. With beds. And a shower? Even one with hot water. She threw both arms around his neck so fast he nearly lost his balance. Dakota held her tightly, feeling the small bones in her back through her school shirt. He looked over her shoulder at Savannah. She wasn't smiling. She looked relieved. The attorney's office sat inside a converted adobe home near Old Town. The waiting room smelled like leather and strong coffee, and framed photographs of hot air balloons covered one wall. The attorney, Marisol Vega, examined the ticket beneath a desk lamp, then placed it inside a clear protective sleeve. "It's valid," she said. Dakota's hand tightened around Cynthia's. Marisol explained the claim process, the taxes, the choice between annual payments and a reduced lump sum. She spoke calmly, but the numbers stopped feeling real after 20 million. Then she asked the question Dakota had been avoiding. "Has anyone else seen this ticket?" "Savannah." Marisol looked toward her. Savannah nodded. "I watched him check it." "Anyone else?" Dakota thought of Mercer standing near the lockers. Maybe someone saw the envelope. They don't know what was inside. Marisol leaned back. New Mexico allows winners to remain anonymous under certain circumstances, but we need to move carefully. No social media. No sudden purchases. Don't tell coworkers or extended family. Cynthia swung her feet beneath the chair. "Can we tell the motel?" "No." 3 adults said at once. For the first time that day, Cynthia laughed. Marisol slid a second document across the desk. "There's something else. The ticket was purchased with money your daughter found." Dakota nodded. $1 near a gas pump. "And she chose the numbers?" His stomach tightened. "She's 7. I'm not suggesting she owns the ticket. I'm asking because family disputes often begin with small details. Someone hears the story, decides they deserve part of the money, and suddenly everyone remembers events differently." Dakota looked at Savannah. The fear he had felt in the locker room returned, colder now. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying money doesn't create character," Marisol replied. "It exposes it." They left after sunset with the ticket locked in Marisol's office safe and a claim appointment scheduled for Wednesday. In the parking lot, Savannah handed Dakota his car keys. "You should take Cynthia to the motel." "You're not coming?" "I have grading." Cynthia looked up. "You can grade there." Savannah smiled at her. "Your dad needs some time with you." Dakota heard what she didn't say. He had accused her of crossing a line. Now she was stepping back far enough to prove she could. Before he could answer, his phone rang. "Mercer." Dakota almost ignored it, then saw 3 missed calls from the school. He answered. "What?" Mercer's voice came fast. "You need to get back here. A water line burst above the cafeteria. Call the night crew. They can't find the..." "Shut off." Dakota closed his eyes. Savannah stared at him. "Don't. If they don't shut it down, it'll flood the kitchen. You don't work there anymore tonight. It's still my building." "No, it's a building where you work." Cynthia looked between them. Dakota heard water roaring through Mercer's phone and teachers shouting in the background. "I know where the valve is," he said. Savannah's jaw tightened. "Of course you do." He drove back. By the time they arrived, water had spread across half the cafeteria. Dakota changed into rubber boots, crawled through a maintenance hatch, and shut the main valve while Mercer stood uselessly beneath a leaking ceiling tile. For 40 minutes, Dakota pushed water toward the drains with a floor squeegee. Savannah helped without speaking. Cynthia sat on a dry table wrapped in Dakota's jacket. Then Mercer noticed the attorney's business card on the floor beside Dakota's toolbox. He picked it up. "Lottery claims," he read aloud. Dakota froze. Mercer's eyes moved from the card to Savannah, then to Dakota. "You won." Savannah stepped forward. "Put that down." "How much?" "None of your business," Dakota said. Mercer laughed once, stunned. "That's why you disappeared." "I didn't disappear. You've been lying all day." Dakota looked at the flooded cafeteria, the soaked boxes, the dirty water around his boots. "I came back, didn't I?" Mercer's face hardened. "So what happens now? You quit and leave us buried." The accusation struck deeper than Dakota expected. He looked at Cynthia sitting beneath the mural painted by students. She had spent almost a month sleeping in a car while he kept every promise he made to everyone except her. "I'm done for tonight," he said. Mercer shook his head. "Money changes people fast." Dakota removed his work gloves. "No. Sometimes it finally gives them permission to stop being used." The room went silent. He walked to Cynthia and lifted her from the table. 3 weeks later, Dakota returned to Mesa Vista wearing the same gray custodian shirt. Savannah found him repairing a classroom door before sunrise. "You claimed the money," she said. "Yesterday. And you're still here. For now." She stared at him. "Why?" Dakota tightened the hinge. "Because Cynthia starts counseling next week. Because we rented a small house near her school instead of buying something she'd get lost in. Because I don't know who I am without work yet." Savannah leaned against the doorframe. "You don't have to prove you're still the same man." "I'm not the same man." He stood and met her eyes. I'm trying to become one who knows the difference between pride and dignity. Savannah said nothing. Dakota reached into his pocket and handed her a folded paper. It was a plan to fund emergency housing assistance for school employees and families facing eviction. No building would carry his name. No ceremony would announce the donation. At the bottom, he had written one condition. Savannah Price would help choose the families. She read it twice. You trust me with this? I trusted you with the ticket. That didn't go very well. It went better than I deserved. Her eyes lifted to his. Down the hallway, Cynthia ran toward them wearing clean clothes and carrying a lunchbox instead of a grocery bag. Dad, the new house makes noises at night. Dakota smiled. Pipes do that. Are we staying? He knelt and opened his arms. We're staying. Cynthia pressed herself against him. Dakota looked past her at the bucket, the tools, and the long hallway waiting to be cleaned. He would not remain a janitor forever. He knew that now. But he would leave carefully, after training his replacement and keeping the promise he had made to finish the semester. The money had bought them safety. It had not bought trust, peace, or a new life in a single afternoon. Those things would take longer. And for the first time in years, Dakota finally had time.